So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about quiet quitting your marriage or the silent divorce. So right after I thought I was so smart and came up with quiet quitting in a video that I did for Facebook, the next day on CNN, the quote was, "Silent divorce is becoming an epidemic." So, I guess I should have picked silent divorce. And then, of course, I did another video with silent divorce in it. But point is, it's like the same thing. And I'm going to talk about it today. As soon as I tell you to subscribe, I have about 200 subscriber episodes. My most recent was De-Romanticize Your Life. Oh, and before that was When Women Pre-Initiate Sex, and how that's linked to overfunctioning, because basically they're initiating sex. So anyway, if that's your dynamic, or your wife has always wanted you to take charge more in any sort of way, then that's for you. Or if you're that woman, it's for you. Okay, so what is silent divorce or quiet quitting your marriage? Or what I called it was in my book, Couples You Meet in Counseling, which of course you should all have already got on Amazon. I even put it on sale recently. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited. I mean, there's like no reason why I shouldn't have read this book. But but anyway, I called it Mr. and Mrs. Divorced in Spirit, So basically this couple is divorced emotionally. They're not close. They don't hang out together. They do not have sex usually, or sometimes they still do, like in a cursory kind of way. They may do it like once a week for like 10 minutes or something, or less. If they're younger, they're likelier to have sex. Obviously, young mammals have sex. I hope I've really drummed that one into you. But point being, they are not emotionally connected. They don't really feel married. They do not think in a we. They do not really think about spending time with their partner as a positive. They are sitting there scrolling on their phones. They usually don't even watch the same television. Sometimes they do, but that's just coincidence if they like the same television. They may still socialize with couples because that's like what they do, is go out together and socialize. And so that's already in place, that's scaffolding. And often they still do family activities. And that, in fact, is the point. For a lot of these couples, they're staying together for the kids. So, of course, they're still going to do family activities. But a lot of the time, it's still like handing off the kids. So it's almost like split custody in the same house. So except for holidays or like big games that the kids have or graduations, whatever. But a lot of the time, it's kind of like he goes and does his thing, maybe with like one of the kids, and then she does her thing with the other one of the kids, or alone, and then they switch. Or, he goes out at night with his friends on Saturday, and she goes out at night with her friends on Friday. And that's kind of it's almost like they're divorced, But they get to stay in one house and not split the finances and keep saving together for the children's college and all these things. So what is the attachment style here? Well, it could be two avoidant people. Truly, it could be two people like kind of what I've talked about with the we do what we want marriage, where they both literally do what they want. They wanted kids, they wanted to get married, but these are two people that struggle with intimacy and they struggle with attaching on a deep level to somebody else. And when they were young and in the honeymoon stage, everything was fun and exciting. And then now it's not, and so they do not really derive any joy from the relationship. Often one or both are not attracted to the other anymore. and they're just kind of riding it out. And often they grew up in similar families where there was a feeling of disconnection or separation. So they just kind of assume that this is what it is, long-term marriage. Other times there was a pursuer, distance, or relationship, but it's a lot what I talk about. I had a recent podcast about when preoccupied attachment women change in their 40s. So the woman was always saying, oh, let's be closer, crying. I wish you would spend more time with me. I wish you wouldn't travel so much. I wish you wouldn't work so much. And then she hits a time where she's like, oh, that's not going to change. So I guess it's on me whether I'm going to leave or I'm just going to wait it out until the kids are older. And a lot of times, of course, she'll wait it out till the kids are older, especially if the kids are getting older quickly. I mean, if they're already in like middle school, let's say, then she could say, okay, I don't want to stress the children out with a divorce. This is basically terrible. I'm not really going to think about it. I'm just going to put it on the back burner and go on with my life, and we could keep everything similar, for the kids. And I'm kind of sick of asking. I don't care anymore. And he, doesn't obviously want to spend time with me, never did. So, this is what it is. Sometimes it's the man in that situation, but, I've more often the female is a preoccupied attachment partner. So I've more often seen it like that. There's even a name for it, the walk-away wife, where she tries hard when she's younger, then she hits like her 40s or her 50s and she's out because and the guy thinks things have improved, at least that now she kind of knows that life is not just some romantic comedy and, people just don't connect as much as she thought. And now she finally grew up and calmed down and now she's acting more reasonably. But the reality is that they're only compatible now because she is acting avoidant also, and he's avoidant. And so then they're both avoidant. And so they have that in common. So now they alternate between who does what hobby, who is with the kids. And he thinks it's a great setup, but, she doesn't. She still yearns for more eventually. Sometimes there'll be some sort of crisis where, like, for example, she'll stop having sex with him completely because she thinks this is absurd. I have no feelings toward him. He has no feelings toward me. We're obviously in this for the children. Like, why are we even having sex? And then he is like, oh shit, like I thought we were kind of all right-ish. And so he gets really upset. And then that's when men reach out more for counseling. Usually it's women that reach out for couples counseling, but the men reach out when it's become a sexless marriage. And then they are upset. And then they think, well, if I'm going to stay in this, I'm never going to have sex again, etc. So that's when men will come in. Sometimes there'll be some other sort of big thing that happens, some big stressor, maybe an affair, because, obviously they're not into each other. So then, they're very open, engaging with other people. Most of their emotional bandwidth is taken up with work or friends, and then sometimes an affair starts to happen. And if that starts to happen, then that could either be just the nail in the coffin, or it can lead to some hysterical bonding where they try to come into counseling and finally work on things. That's kind of the way that I've seen that, that's the two paths that I've seen. But also there can be people that never were in love with each other, and so they have a silent divorce because they didn't ever really have a marriage. They didn't have much of a honeymoon stage. There was no spark. These are the kind of people that get together because they think, okay, I want a family. I am not very attractive or appealing myself. I'm never going to find anybody better than this person. And life is not, again, a romantic comedy. And I cannot, and if it was, it wouldn't be for me, because these people have low self-esteem. They do not think they deserve or could find a romantic relationship that is satisfying, or they may not even believe that anybody has those because of how they grew up seeing a very similar dynamic in their home. So then those people, it's almost like they've always been in a silent divorce. They act kind of like friends, but there was no emotional component there to even, really expand on. And so many of these couples, especially if it's fewer years since it's begun, a lot of the ships can be righted if they get into couples counseling and really work on things. Think about, what template are we showing our children? How are they going to grow up thinking about marriage? That could be useful. But if it's been going on for like 20 years, there's not there's not like that much that is going to change after 2 decades, no matter. I mean, it would be beneficial to me to tell you, yeah, sure, come on into couples counseling. But like, if it's been like 20 years, you guys are living parallel lives, well, you know, the writing on the wall is not good there. But if it's like 5 years, then that's different. I mean, people could be grieving for 5 years if they have complicated grief. People could be basically pregnant and nursing for 5 years. I certainly was, because I had 3 under 3.5 at some point. Not at some point, at the point that I had a 3rd child. But, you know, smaller amounts of time, even 10 years. But if it's been like this, almost like for at least a decade after the kids are out of the house, well, then this is just what your life is. And then you have to do some individual introspection to think about if this is what you want in your life. It's probably not coming back. That's not to say that it never could. We have a guy in my Facebook group. Y'all should always join my Facebook group. That's, you know, a success story in that regard from going into couples counseling. But, you know, after a long-term sexless marriage that was disconnected. But you know, this isn't most people. Then again, people who go to therapy are not most people because they're more motivated than average. But the point, what I'm trying to say is get in sooner than later. If this quiet quitting of your marriage or the silent divorce resonates with you, then what are you waiting for? Like, at least see what can be done. Often when people resolve empathic ruptures and they start to understand each other at a deeper level, when they go back into their families of origin and they say, oh, this is why I act like this, and maybe I can act differently since I now see that this is why I act like this, and it isn't just how I have to act within a marriage, and I could communicate differently, I could engage differently, I could be more comfortable with intimacy of physical, sexual, emotional, with practice and with effort. You know, these are the sorts of things that really do change the frame. When people do not have any deep conversations for years and years, then they don't really know each other anymore. And couples counseling can help you get to know each other and be curious about each other again, particularly if you're able to come in with openness and non-defensiveness, which is difficult for many, because you were raised probably in a very similar dynamic where you didn't talk about feelings or where there was a lot of conflict. And now there's a lot of people in this situation that think that they're doing a lot better for their kids than they had for them because they grew up with a lot of screaming and fighting. And now there's just this kind of quiet détente. And that is better. Certainly the children are not stressed by the constant arguing and fighting that they experienced, but that isn't as good as you could be. Obviously, ideally, the children would see a loving, warm marriage where the partners, the parents were like a team and loved each other and laughed and smiled and that sort of thing, because that gives them a template to move forward into a similar relationship when they're older, so that they don't just repeat the same pattern of having yet another dysfunctional family type in their own marriage when they're older. So if this resonated with you, this is kind of a good one to talk to your spouse about and say, did you see that silent divorce thing? Unfortunately, kind of was uncomfortably familiar, because this was all over CNN and what have you, probably be a month ago now by the time you listen to this. But, or you could listen to this podcast. Remember, as I tell you all the time, do not force your spouse to listen to my podcast. That is not going to be taken well. Maybe if they like one episode, if you want one episode, but just because you like listening to me does not mean that your spouse is going to like listening to me, because the preoccupied attachment partner usually likes listening to me and the avoidant does not, because the avoidant would rather listen to their podcast on time management or whatever, you know, and I don't blame them because I don't like podcasts myself. So, so don't just like link your spouse like 5 of my podcasts and then be like, oh, I don't know, they hate you now. Yeah, well, shit, of course, because you're like this force feeding it. But anyway, I hope that you, who is probably the preoccupied attachment partner, got something out of this, perhaps a renewed motivation to work on your quiet quitting, silent divorce marriage. And thank you for listening. And if you ever need a therapist or a coach, please do reach out to us. I still have very few slots available myself for therapy and coaching, and I have lots and lots of great people working for me at Best Life Behavioral Health. All right, talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.